Boy, 5 days in, a month in, you've had quite a ride already.
Absolutely.
So to the question there from Senator Schumer, why'd you take the job? Let's start with that.
Well, if you think about the fact that the Department of Education was actually set up in 1980, and we've spent $1 trillion since then to educate students in our country, and we've seen scores continually decline. We're clearly not doing something right. And so what President Trump wants to do is to take the bureaucracy out of education. He believes, as do I, that the best education is closest to the student, that parents, that teachers, that school administrators in the local areas know what's best. There is no one-size-fits-all for education. And what I hope the Education Department will be able to do as we are paring down and preparing to turn over all control to the states is that we can provide them with tools to help them. We can provide them with research. We can give them information on best practices that is working in many states already to get those scores up for reading and math. I mean, when you think about the fact that only 70% only 30%, I'll reverse it, only 30% of our students can read with proficiency. That's just absolutely unacceptable.
Thinking about education as a whole, if our goal is the best education for our kids, shouldn't we be pouring everything we have, money, manpower, resources, rather than looking at ways to scale back?
Well, that was my point earlier in saying that we'd spend $1 trillion. The answer has always been just put more money into it. And as we put more money into it, we didn't see the results. Our test scores continued to go down. Let's pay our teachers for good performance. Let's make sure money is getting into the states. Congress appropriates the money, but let's be sure that money gets there and it's not tied up in bureaucracy. That's what I think our schools and our states need.
The idea that parents are the primary decision makers of their kids' education, that they'll make the best decisions, is a good one, and that education should be left to the states is the idea of the president. But what about the kids that fall through the cracks? Are you confident the states can catch them?
Well, I think that is up to the states, and I think that's why we want to make sure that parents are more involved, that teachers have the time and the ability to really address issues with kids. Well, certainly we can't do it from Washington. That has already proven that it fails. We cannot direct these things from Washington. They have to be done on a local basis. And that's why the challenge is at all schools is to make sure that each child has the ability to be educated up to their level. That's why the president is so much in favor and such a proponent of school choice. Children should not be trapped in low-performing schools. They should have the opportunity to go in other schools where their education can best be suited for them and they can rise up to their best potential.
I want to talk to you about school choice, but for a moment, I want to get to the news in the last 24 hours, which was the president had signaled that he would sign an executive order to dissolve the department. That didn't happen. What changed?
Well, I'm certainly not going to get ahead of the president. The president makes his own determination on what executive orders that he's going to put into place and sign. And if he's going to sign one relative to the Department of Education, then that'll be on his time frame.
Does the mission remain the same? Has the timeline changed?
The mission, of course, is the same, and the president campaigned on this. He's been crystal clear that he wants to see the Department of Education closed, and he'd like to see it done sooner rather than later. But he understands that we need to work with Congress. There are certain things that are in statute. It would take 60 votes in the Senate to close the Department of Education. And I think my job is to convince Congress that the steps that we are taking are in the best interest of the kids and that they would vote to close the Department of Education if they feel confident that at the state level that those kids are going to receive a better education. You know, currently the Department of Education provides 8 to 10% of the funding to public schools, so most of it is handled at the state level anyway. But I think that it can just be better handled with all of the money getting there. One stat that's pretty interesting, that of every dollar that goes to states out of the federal budget, teachers say that they spend about 47 cents of that dollar complying with regulations instead of focusing on teaching. So let's take the bureaucracy away and let teachers devote their full time to students in the classroom.
Our kids deserve the best. We can all agree on that. I look forward to having you back as you take on that task. Secretary McMahon, thank you for your time.
Thank you.